Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. John Mason. I'm with Masters of the Journey, and today I'm with a very new friend of mine. New because she's new in Bellingham, where I live, and we met recently, only a couple of weeks ago. She's a fascinating person. She's got quite a history and a great story. Her name is Ayesha Ashley, and today she wants to tell you the exciting story about when she was 6 years old and there was a spiritual experience that opened the door in many ways. Today, she's going to be talking about how she got started with her spiritual development and consciousness. Now, just to tell you very briefly about Ayesha, she is a healer, does energy healing, and she's been trained to do that. She has that as an intuitive ability as well. She's a seeker and a finder. And she's been at this for quite a while. So I wanted to welcome you. Ayesha, how are you today?
Very happy to be here.
Great, great. And I'd like to just turn the meeting over to you because I want you to tell your story. And I think it'll really grab people's attention. Some people can relate to it, other people, it will just change the perspective on their life. Take it away.
Thank you. Well, when I was growing up, I was in a severely dysfunctional family. My mother attempted to abort me and didn't succeed, but I always felt that there was danger. And one day I was, and my house was a kind of dangerous place for me. Lots of punishments and abuse and so forth. So one day I was coming home from school, and I lived on the third floor of an apartment house in Brooklyn, and I was running my fingers along the wall, you know how kids do, and wondering if today was the day my parents were going to kill me. It was just a kind of everyday, well, I wonder if today's the day. And and I wasn't really opposed to it because my life was hard. I thought, okay, get it over with. So I'm wondering, is today the day they're going to kill me? And I hear this voice. You cannot believe the volume, the echo effect. It was infinite. This voice, a masculine voice, and it came out of nowhere. And it said, "You will not die until you complete your mission." Wah, 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 wah. And it was so loud, I thought all of the neighbors on the floors would open their doors and find out, what is this sound? Of course, nobody did. And so I realized this was a message for me. And it showed me two things. Number one, I had a mission. And it would take me some years before I realized what that mission was. At 6, you don't have a lot of vision. And the other thing is, I knew that my parents were not going to succeed in killing me. So that took a huge burden off of me. So that was the beginning. And that was a pretty early experience that triggered my search for what my mission would be.
So that's a pretty exciting and amazing story. How did you feel about that? Did it give you confidence? Did it make you feel secure? Were you excited? Were you scared? When you hear a voice like that, what was it like for you?
Well, I wasn't afraid because it was clearly directed to me, and it was reassuring that I was not going to be killed. But then I began to search for my mission. What is it I'm supposed to be doing? And it became kind of I was always searching. What is it I'm here to do? What is it I'm here to do? What's my mission? And of course, it took me a couple of decades till I figured that one out, got my master's degrees and all of my education, and then was able to explore the whole spiritual landscape that I did through reading. My first teacher was Gurdjieff, and I had moved to England in 1976. So this is quite a few years after that. And went to the library, and there was a book there called The Fourth Way, which I just took out and thumbed through it. And it was the beginning of my understanding of Gurdjieff. within a year of getting that book out of the library, I had read everything that I could get a hold of. And I had discovered a Gurdjieff group in London. So every month when we had a meeting, I would take the train from Cornwall to London, a good long trip, and back again, and attend the meetings of the Gurdjieff group, which was truly astounding for me. I mean, they were tremendous spiritual instructors. They had all of the knowledge of Gurdjieff and they imparted it. And there was, a time for questions and answers and all that. It was wonderful.
Okay, so many people know Gurdjieff. Some people do not know. He was a Russian philosopher.
Mhm.
He was a person who had a lot to say, but more than that, he was about consciousness development. And what was his message to you about how important consciousness was and how to open the door on that?
Well, he said, of course, as everyone knows, know thyself. Find out who you are, what you like, what you think, what you believe, what you want to believe, what your goals are, all of those things about knowing yourself. And to not trust uh, the standardized myths that were given to people, that you had to use every moment of your life to be fully present, to take in what you were observing, and to come to your own conclusions. And he was an expert in describing how to do that. He talked about emotionally, uh, people who are emotionally dominant, which is me. I'm emotionally not intellectually dominant, although it's kind of a contest there. But and he talked about the various methods by which we learn and assemble our information. So I was a member of that group for a good 4 years.
And
It was wonderful.
what can people take away from a message like that? That you've got to find your purpose in life. You're seeking it. You meet with a group of people, maybe a supportive community. So what do you do with it now? What does the viewer learn from this?
Well, I discovered the Gurdjieff group through going to the library and picking out a book. Not everybody's that fortunate. Sometimes you find out other ways, you hear about it. And nowadays, there's a lot more in the way of publicity. There's the internet, there's all kinds of ways. YouTube, you can discover all kinds of spiritual doctrines and opportunities. I would say just listen to the message and see if it grabs you. If it grabs you, it's for you. If it doesn't grab you, something else will.
Good advice.
Just follow your heart there, because you'll know when it speaks to you, it'll go, yeah, I want to know that. So I was with the Gurdjieff group 4 years in London, and a friend of mine took me to a lecture by a man from a group called the Emissaries of Divine Light, or EDL. And his name was Bill Bain. He was a chiropractor and an incredibly amazing spiritual leader. And at the end of his lecture, I walked up to him, and with my usual reticence, I said to him, I want to know what you know. And he handed me the emissary introductory literature. Well, I went to the emissary group, which was quite a distance from London. I went every weekend for 6 months to see who they were and to introduce myself and find out and see if maybe it was a place that if they would accept me, I would do it. And after 6 months, they accepted me into the community, which, it's kind of like waiting outside the gates of the Shinto or whatever your other tradition is to be allowed into the community. Well, they let me in, and I moved up to a town called Mickleton in England, not far from Stratford upon Avon. And we were running a hotel, the Emissaries. So everybody had to contribute. So I was cooking breakfast, I was cleaning toilets, making beds, whatever they needed. And and listening to the lectures and the understandings of the emissaries, which their motto was live to your highest vision of integrity every moment. And I thought, yeah, I can agree with that. That works for me.
And I know that there's a little bit more to that story because there was a breakthrough for you
Yes.
that got me very excited about hearing your story. So I don't want to tease people. What happened?
Well, they had me washing dishes. Now, I had been a college professor, okay? So when they had me washing dishes, my ego went into overdrive. Oh, they don't need a college professor to do the dishes. They need a drunk, somebody they can pull in off the streets. You don't need to be doing this. This is beneath you, blah, blah. And I hated it. I hated it for weeks. And one day I said, I'm leaving. I mean, I don't need to be a slave to these people washing their dishes. And I stopped because I realized that this was a special place to be. And I shouldn't be leaving it, especially not having a fit for my ego. So I thought about it right in that moment. And I said, you know what? I've been offering my contribution with such an ugly attitude. It's not an offering, it's almost a detriment. I'm doing it with resentment. That's no way to offer. So, right then and there, I said, I'm changing my attitude. So, when I would come in and see the dishes piled above my head, I would say, through these hands, there will be order and cleanliness with a sense of, yes, I want this. And after I started working that way with the dishes, in the first week, I began to have interesting, advanced sort of spiritual openings. I don't know what you would call them. Experiences that were more obviously connected to spiritual sources. 2 weeks after I started washing the dishes that way, I was standing by the big dishwashing machine, and suddenly I went into the void, total blackness, no thought, no sound, just black. And I had come there because I had not believed that there was a gracious and loving God, given that there were wars and the Holocaust and all kinds of ugliness on the earth. How could there be a loving God that would allow this? So I came to the emissaries to see if there was such a being. That was my real reason. So there I go into the void, and I don't hear anything, but I have a knowing. The first thing was there's no gender, because being a woman was difficult for me, being a second-class citizen. There's no death. And we all called the universe into being together. That was it, I knew. When that experience was over, I walked to the leader of the community, to his house, and I knew that I had received the knowing that there was such a being. And that was why I had come there. So I walked all the way to the person who was in charge, and I looked at him. I said 2 words, I know. And I turned around and walked away. And that was the beginning.
Amazing story. And from Eastern philosophy, they often say things like you do a simple task, and from a simple task, something can be born. You changed your attitude and became open to being present and to being genuinely in service, and you
Yes.
were rewarded. So
Yes.
that is an amazing story, and I thank you for sharing that. I think that there's going to be a lot of clean dishes in in our audience from now on, because maybe there's a way that they can find this just in their own kitchen. Who knows?
Well, you can find it anywhere. But the thing is, the number one thing for me was recognizing that my ego had got a hold of me. That it was saying, oh, you're a college professor, you don't need to be doing this, you're better than this, all of this ego stuff. And when I stopped listening to that, I got it. If you're going to do something, do it with graciousness, with devotion, with an understanding that this is an act that has consequences. And the way in which we create our act, the attitude, the vibration that we bring to it, that really determines the outcome, I believe.
That is that is so important for us to hear. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's the real wisdom of this very short video. And I'm gonna wind it down for right now, but I want you to come back. Maybe we can find other ways and other questions to answer or other stories to tell, just to add to the perspective that our audience can find.
I
So,
just want to add one thing.
yes.
Okay. In all of my searches, all of the things I did to discover, I came to one question which I find is the key to my acting in the way that I desire to act every moment. And it's up to all of us to find the question that triggers that. The question for me, and it may be useful for you, what is it I can do in this moment that will be a blessing in this situation? Whatever the situation is, what can I contribute that would be a blessing? That's the question. That's the ultimate question for me.
I That's amazing. And it simplifies things, though it's harder to remember when we're in the drama of our lives.
Oh,
And
yes.
the way I go about saying that is, how can I be of service? What is it that I'm supposed to learn from this? But more importantly, if I learn something, how can I share it? What is the message that is going to be useful to pass along?
That's kind of the same question.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's those are my words. You have your words. It's great that we've come at it from the decades of goofing around in life to come up with something very similar as a goal. Ayesha, this has really been a pleasure to chat with you, and I want to thank you. Is there anything that you can say or want to add as we close this out? And it's a blessing that you've come here today.
I'd like to invite anyone who has physical pain to contact me, because that is part of my mission, to remove physical pain from people who are having that problem. And feel free to call me and get my phone number. Just do it. I'm ready to do it. That's what I came here to do.
We'll put some contact information in the link below on the description. And I'm sure that you're going to be overwhelmed by the amount of the offer that you made.
Welcome.
If you get overwhelmed, we'll erase that from the link below, so that you can have a vacation every now and then.
Well, I hope to get that many people.
No,
I hope to be of use, because I'm not doing it and I feel I'm not fulfilling what I came here to do.
thank you for joining us, and I'm glad that you get this message out there. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, John.